Welcome into Outkick the Show, boys and girls. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope wherever you might find yourself across the country or across the world, you are having a fantastic day. I want to tell you right off the jump that this show is presented by sportsbookreview.com. And if you want to go check out the best gambling odds anywhere, you can go check out their link that I have put up in Outkick, or you can just go to sportsbookreview.com, go up to the top, click on college football or the NFL because the NFL kicks off tomorrow, and you will be entertained, you will be educated, and you'll be able to find the best possible line anywhere in the country. I also want to tell you, if you have substantial credit card debt and you want to wipe it out, my guy Ryan Kelly's got the best mortgage company in the country, thehomeloanexpert.com. You go there, you click on it, you give him your info. You can get pre-qualified for a mortgage to go shop over the weekend. Maybe you're looking around at new houses. Or if you have credit card debt and you want to make some awesome trips out to tailgate for the fall, or you're already looking ahead, as I'm sure your wife is, to how much you're going to spend for Christmas on the presents for the kids, why not wipe out all the credit card debt? I know that feeling of walking down to the mailbox and thinking, my God, it's going to be a big number, and I don't have the money to pay it off. I'm telling you right now, go to thehomeloanexpert.com and you will be glad that you did. All right, I want to start with something interesting here. I'm going to talk about several different things. Let me give you a rundown here. I'm going to talk Nike is running a Kaepernick ad during NFL games, college football gambling picks, the fact that Twitter isn't real life, and the Supreme Court hearing going on right now for Kavanaugh, which is going to be, he's going to be the next Supreme Court justice. Just get used to it. I told you months ago that you were going to have a long, hot summer of people arguing, oh, is Brett Kavanaugh going to be confirmed? He's going to be confirmed. He will replace Justice Anthony Kennedy. He will be ready to go, okay? Here is something that I think you need to know. There is a segment of the population on Twitter. It's not exclusively on the right. It's not exclusively on the left. They refuse to acknowledge basic factual truths. And sometimes I'm just amazed by it. But really, I think it was useful to be writing about college football and talking about college football, because what has happened is the infestation of college football, where no matter what your program does, you will defend it to the nth degree if the team is winning. It's unlike pro sports. College sports is intensely parochial. It's provincial. People don't consider larger context. They only argue whatever benefits them. And when I started doing radio, I noticed that I had a unique ability, evidently. I could think about my favorite team, which is the University of Tennessee, objectively. I could look at everything and consider Tennessee in the larger context, and most SEC fans weren't able to take the bias out of their brain, even otherwise intelligent people, and actually apply facts and logic to situations. One of the reasons why I make the money that I do now is because I have that ability. I can argue anything, right? I mean, I don't think I learned it in law school. I think I naturally had a brain that was capable of putting any kind of argument together. And so before I come out with an argument, I have already argued it in my head from every different perspective. Sometimes people say, well, you dismiss callers quickly. Well, the reason why I dismiss callers quickly is because most of the time they're not coming up with arguments that I haven't already considered. And this used to bother my wife when we first got married. We got married, we met in law school, she's really smart. And I would ask her opinion on something, and then I would do the opposite sometimes. She would say, why did you ask my opinion? And I would say, because I married you partly because you're hot, you're smart, and all those things, but also because I value having intelligent people to consider the argument that I'm making, right? So I don't necessarily agree or disagree with someone when I ask their opinion if they're intelligent. If I call you and ask your opinion, I just want to make sure that I'm not missing something and that I can add it to my overall knowledge to try to come to the best conclusion as possible. And I say that as a prelude because every day, and I've said this for a while, I'm an old man, and I'm an old man in the context that I read a newspaper. I get the New York Times and I get the Wall Street Journal delivered to my house every day, and I read them both, cover to cover. And the reason I like the actual newspaper is because I think it forces me to see the entire news as presented by that newspaper on that day, as opposed to going in and reading a few individual articles that might already convince me that my worldview is correct. In other words, when I flip through this newspaper, I am presented with evidence and information that I might not otherwise seek out because my biases are not going to allow me to seek them out. Does that make sense? It's important to have contradictory information to the information that you believe. I read the New York Times editorials every day. I read the Wall Street Journal editorials every day. They give different perspectives. Sometimes I agree with the New York Times. Sometimes I agree with the Wall Street Journal. I bring that as a prelude about Nike stock. This is the front page of the Wall Street Journal today. I'm going to hold it up for you. This is real news. Okay, this is a real newspaper. This is the newspaper of record in all of Wall Street, right? Of everybody that you can trust. I want to make sure you see this is a real newspaper. This is a physical copy of the New York Times, of the Wall Street Journal, okay? Right here, directly beneath the fold, they have the Brett Kavanaugh article about his testimony. Right here, directly beneath the fold, you can see this headline. Nike's plunge into NFL battle draws quick backlash, okay? And then they also have, this is the front page of the Wall Street Journal newspaper, a picture of Nike stock. You can see it on Facebook. You can see it on Twitter, plummeting yesterday. The stock market, I love markets, right? Gambling markets, stock markets. The stock market reacts every day to the information that exists in the larger universe. And on a day-to-day basis, a stock's price will fluctuate based on what people believe of the new information. Nike kept the Colin Kaepernick relationship serious, so the first time that anybody on Wall Street had an inclination, in theory, that this advertising campaign was going to happen was on Monday afternoon. It was not priced into the stock, the risk inherent in a Colin Kaepernick advertising campaign. And so when the stock market opened on Tuesday, even before the stock market opened in early trading, the stock price immediately declined, and it declined throughout the day. It ended up down over $2 a share. It was the worst performer of the Dow Jones Industrial Stocks. It was down over 3% on the day, wiping out about $4 billion in market capitalization. And this is what I'm talking about. Somebody like this. Stupid. Nike stock is up now. Okay, we will go right now. According to my live app, which I look at regularly, I'm an investor. I look at stock prices regularly. Nike is up 30 cents today. That means it is up 0.4% today after being down 3.16% yesterday. It has ticked back up a small fraction. Okay? That is a tiny little fraction of a return, 30 cents after being down over $2 the day before. That is not equivalent. That's not remotely similar. Yet everybody out there on Twitter has been tweeting me like crazy, including this old crazy man, Keith Olbermann, who I used to watch do SportsCenter in 7th and 8th grade. And I don't understand. It's like they are arguing with me that the stock price yesterday had nothing to do with the announcement of the Colin Kaepernick news. And I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I'm like, do you think that the Wall Street Journal, the preeminent coverer of American business news, would put on the front page of their newspaper as one of their lead stories right beneath the Supreme Court hearing, the only stock that was written about yesterday, the only stock chart that is on the front page of the newspaper, this story, if what I'm saying is true, is not true. That the stock dropped because of the Colin Kaepernick relationship. I got to tell you something. The amount of people who don't believe in actual tangible evidence in front of them because it bothers them and it conflicts with their worldview is becoming staggering and very college football-like. When I watched the Urban Meyer story play out, what I saw happening was a light bulb went off in my head. I said, my God, America as a country has become like college football fans are when it comes to their favorite program. whatever your favorite and preferred entity is doing, Donald Trump, Nancy Pelosi, any politician, you will defend them to the end of the earth. And the moment that they do something that is inappropriate, you will immediately deflect and argue elsewhere. Now, let me say something. It's possible that signing Colin Kaepernick is going to pay off in spades for Nike. Maybe they are going to sell so many new pairs of shoes. Maybe they are going to sell so many new apparel products. All of that could happen, right? The great thing about the stock market is if you believe that the direction Nike is going from a marketing perspective makes sense, there's a way to put your money where your mouth is. You can go buy Nike stock. If you believe that Nike is making a bad decision, then you have the ability to go short Nike stock. The great thing about the American marketplace and why I am such a free market guy is ultimately we find out who's correct in the marketplace. That's why I love stocks. The attempt of a stock is to reasonably retain and create a value for an amorphous security that we have created that artificially represents in some way the overall complete value of a company. It's really an amazingly beautiful financial construct. And so I'm not, algorithm guy. I'm not X's and O's when it comes to analytics of stocks or anything else. But I have a general decent sense, I think, for probability. And right now, if I were setting probabilities, I think Colin Kaepernick is a bad move for Nike's business. Now, the fact that people will not recognize or acknowledge that Nike stock was down because of Colin Kaepernick is crazy. I'm going to block this guy. I happen to look over and I see, and I might have blocked the wrong person, so I apologize. You can tweet me and I'll take you off. If I see you and I see you tweet, I happen to look over here in the Periscope or the Facebook and I'm like, my God, would a person with an IQ above 90 have said this? And they say it over and over and over again, then I'm going to block you. I don't know what the discourse is or what the standard is, but you should have to be at least as intelligent as the average person in America today, in my opinion, to be able to comment in the Periscope or in the Facebook. If I look over and I think, you know what, you are so dumb, you are making my head hurt, then you're going to get wiped out. That's the way I do the show. I don't read most of the comments. I got to go look over, and every now and then if I see the same name and it's like the same stupid thing and I see it again, I'm going to pull out the gun and I'm going to wipe you out and you are going to be gone forever. Like this guy. Like the arguments against what I'm saying are so dumb, right? Like if you are arguing that this decision was not connected to the front page headline of the Wall Street Journal, then what you are arguing is that the people who are the greatest in the world at covering stock maneuvers, machinations, adjustments, you are smarter than they are, and you should be writing the headlines at the Wall Street Journal, okay? I don't agree with every story that every newspaper writes or that every news organization presents, but there is, in general, a debate about how the story gets written. So if you think your economic analysis is more substantial than all the brains put together who were deciding what was going to go on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, then my friend, I'm sorry, you probably should be making a living right now at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and not commenting in my Periscope feed, right? If you are Warren Buffett and you are the greatest reader of a balance sheet and fiscal investor in the history of mankind, I don't think you should be sitting down at 3 o'clock while the market's still open commenting on my Twitter feed, all right? What I have seen happen over and over and over again is the college footballization of the national media and also of many people who comment out there all day long, okay? My theory is this. It is bad for companies to get involved in politics. I don't know how that's a controversial opinion. I can tell you only the decisions that I will make. As long as Nike is paying millions of dollars to Colin Kaepernick, I will not buy a Nike product. I'm not going to cut up my Nike gear. I'm not going to burn it. I'm not going to do any of those things. But I will not buy a Nike product because I disagree with the way that they're choosing to allocate their resources, and that's my right as a consumer. You have a similar right. You can say, you know what, I love Colin Kaepernick and everything he stands for. I'm going to go spend every dollar I have on Nike product. More power to you. I'm a father of 3. I spend hundreds of dollars a year on apparel and shoes, and I'll choose to spend my money on another company's apparel and shoes. I wish that Nike hadn't put me in this position of so aggressively politicizing everything surrounding Colin Kaepernick that I didn't have to think about it. For my entire life up to this point, I have never had to go in and think about this angle. Okay? I just don't understand it. I think it's a bad idea that when I go get a hamburger, I need to think about whether the person who created the brand is a Democrat or a Republican or who they're donating money to. When I go get a chicken sandwich, I don't want to think about all the politics. Now, if you're a religious-based organization like Chick-fil-A, I don't really have a problem with you being religious, right? That's upfront, known at the beginning. But Nike, to this point, to my knowledge, has never, ever made a decision that was political. Again, my book is called Republicans Buy Sneakers Too because Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods followed the ethos of sports belongs to everyone. Everyone likes to watch sports regardless of what your race, your gender, your ethnicity, your religion, or your sexual orientation is. And Jason Whitlock came on my show today. I think I said this yesterday too. I think there's a strong argument to be made that Nike signing Colin Kaepernick is the equivalent of ESPN giving an ESPY to Caitlyn Jenner. It's a decision and a line of demarcation. Forevermore they will be known as the company that did this. And I want to hit on this for a minute. One of the things that I see all the time is this idea that there is a right side of history. This is just not true. As somebody who has studied history for most of my life, the vast majority of the time, we do not know what the right side of history is for a long time. Was it the right decision to go to war in Iraq? I don't think so. But in 200 years, if Iraq has turned into a flourishing democracy and other countries have followed Iraq down that path, then George W. Bush will look like a genius, and everybody like me who is saying going to war in Iraq was stupid will look like an idiot. We will not know. The arc of history is long. It is rare that you have Nazis fighting against Americans. It's rare that you have a clear delineation, but Jason Whitlock on my show pointed out something. When we were fighting World War II, we believed already that we were on the right side of history. We were not the Nazis. We were not putting people into internment camps, except for the Japanese. People get things wrong. And what I have learned is that oftentimes if you realize you were wrong, you just switch to the other side. And this was amazing about it for me. Being on the right side of history, I guess, is fine in the limited number of times when in your lifetime you can determine what the right side of history is. But every day, you get the opportunity to switch sides. Think about this for a minute. If you're going to be on the right side of history, generally, you have to be involved in something that is incredibly controversial. By that, what I mean is this. When Muhammad Ali protested the Vietnam War, his position was extremely controversial. What Colin Kaepernick is protesting is murder of minorities by police. No one is opposed to Colin Kaepernick's protest. That's what people who are so dumb don't understand. They just think that politics doesn't belong in sports when you're in a uniform at work. That's a big difference. People aren't saying, you know what, I'm in favor of more people being murdered. I wish that there was so much more injustice in this world. If you want to take a side that is 50-50 and be proven correct. Here's the other thing. You are judging the right side of history predicated on today's current cultural mores. I want you to think about this for a minute. In 200 years, it may well be the case that everybody is a vegan. And there may be vegans out there that say, you know what we have to do? We have to tear down the statues of everybody who ever ate animals. Everybody who was a meat eater is a barbaric savage. I can't believe that our ancestors ever slaughtered cows for steaks and ever killed roosters and all these different things, right? You may live long enough for your great-grandchildren to be like, great-grandpa? Great-grandma? Did you really used to eat animals? Gross! What were you thinking? How in the world were you ever able to eat meat? You're crazy, Grandma. See, what people forget is history doesn't stop. It's constantly evolving, and this is why I'm anti-tearing down statues and everything else, because everybody should be judged by the historical mores of their time. But if you study history, what you learn is that the idea that you're on the right or wrong side of history is mostly wrong. What's the right side of abortion? What's the right side of the Second Amendment? What's the right side of taxes? What's the right side of any controversial political issue right now? We don't know. Because if we knew, we would all be on the right side. Sometimes you're wrong. But the great thing about America is, at some point in time, you can end up on the wrong side and then change your mind and end up on the right side. People are like, oh, you're going to be on the wrong side of history. Well, I can just change my mind. It's not like we're going to war here. If I'm pro-choice, if at some point down the line I decide, you know what, I was wrong to be pro-choice, I can just switch sides. It's not that hard to do. There were all sorts of people all over the South. Lyndon Johnson's a great example. Lyndon Johnson opposed civil rights for minorities forever. Okay? Forever. Gets elected president and uses all of the tricks he had earned and gained in the Senate to be able to push through civil rights legislation. He was on the wrong side of history, and then he just switched and got on the right side of history. And all people remember him for is being on the right side of history. I guarantee you, there are a ton of Southern families that were marching opposed to the integration of schools, which are now endowing scholarships for minorities at SEC schools. Grandpa was on the wrong side, and now grandson is on the right side. And the family's fine. This idea that there's some line of demarcation, and if you're wrong about an issue, you're never able to be right about the issue, or that you're going to be able to sit around and argue. This is like the people who decide they liked a band before it became popular. Like every now and then I'll get somebody tweet me and they'll be like, I used to really like you a decade ago. Now I don't like you anymore. They used to be on the right side of Clay Travis. Now they're on the wrong side of Clay Travis. And it's like in some way I want to acknowledge them because they knew me before I was as famous as I am now. Well, that's fine. It's like the people who decide they like a band and then they're like, oh, that band sold out. The entire goal of capitalism is to sell out for as much as you can. I mean, it's like, oh, that band sold out. They used to do it for the love and make $40,000 and live in a big van and drive around to play in front of 25 people. And then they started making $25 million a year and selling out stadiums, but they sold out. No, they just got better. They got more popular. The goal is to be as big as you can. Drives me crazy. All right, so the NFL is going to run a Colin Kaepernick ad. I actually think the ad's pretty good, but it has nothing to do with Colin Kaepernick. They just picked Colin Kaepernick as a controversial spokesperson and tried to dumb him down to the point where he's not remotely controversial because now he's in favor of being good. Well, more power to you. Colin Kaepernick has still not spoken. He's still not said anything in the perspective of politics. And now Nike is going to run an ad during NFL games just featuring Colin Kaepernick walking around saying, hey, try to be really good at football. Don't try to buy an Odell Beckham jersey. Try to get Odell Beckham to be better than you. It has nothing to do with Kaepernick or what he stands for. They're just basically instituting a long-range attempt to bring him back into public favor, despite the fact that I think two significant things about Colin Kaepernick. He wore pig socks, and this is the most indefensible thing I think Colin Kaepernick has done, period. He said police were modern-day slave traders. Personally, as someone who knows a lot of police and knows the dangers that they put themselves in every day, I will not support Nike because I can't support anybody being able to pay millions of dollars to endorse your product when they decide that they are in favor of calling police modern-day slave traders. I also am not in favor of anybody who's dumb enough to argue that Cubans have better freedoms than Americans, like he tried to do, and who wore a Fidel Castro t-shirt when he announced that he was protesting America. He's an idiot. He's not a succinct, intelligent individual. He hasn't made any kind of political argument at all that's coherent or even cogent in any manner. I would encourage you to go buy my book, Republicans Buy Sneakers Too, because I absolutely destroy all arguments for him. All right, I'm going to give you my gambling picks really quickly here. Let me tell you, before I said I was going to mention Brett Kavanaugh, he's going to get it confirmed. He's going to be the next Supreme Court justice. If that triggers you, start crying right now. Put on your old outfits, Margaret Atwood's story, and you can run around. Here are my 12 gambling picks. We went 10-4. All right, we went 10-4. Here are our picks this week. Mississippi State over Kansas State, line 8.5, between 8.5 and 9.5. UCLA at Oklahoma, I gave it out to the VIP members at 28.5. It's now 30. Kansas at Central Michigan, minus 6.5. Now it's Central Michigan, minus 4.5. Memphis, minus 4.5 at Navy, over 70.5. It's now 6.5 and 70. Arkansas State at Alabama, I'm going to bet on Bama every week, just a prelude, minus 36.5. Clemson at Texas A&M, plus 12.5. Now Texas A&M, 12. Blood bank guarantee, by the way, is the over in Navy, Memphis at Navy. We had 2 double blood bank guarantees cashed last week. Wyoming at Mizzou. I'm on Mizzou. Georgia at South Carolina. I like the Cox, of course. I like the Cox and the under. Maryland at Bowling Green. I love the over. And Arkansas at Colorado State. I love the over. And we will be good to go there. All of those are fantastic, and I think that they make a lot of sense. Finally, I want to close out with this, and I wrote it a lot in my book. I'm spending less time on Twitter because Twitter is not real life. And I think many people become convinced that Twitter is real life. I'm telling you right now, it is not an accurate reflection of real life. It is a funhouse mirror. It's fun to use, but the idea that you would use Twitter as a reflection of popular opinion is as ridiculous as going on an SEC message board during a game and deciding that it accurately reflects anything. Twitter is, I believe, an aggrieved, angry, victim mentality-laden site where everybody is perpetually upset. Okay? It is not in any way real life. Okay? And so I just think in general that if you spend all day on Twitter and you're outraged perpetually and everything else, you are wasting a lot of your time. Look, here's what I do. I hop into Twitter, maybe an hour a day now, because I had this epiphany. I actually saw a clip from the new HBO show. It's rarely you get an epiphany from the HBO show. The guy said, hey, if you spend 2 hours a day on Instagram, you are spending 1/12 of your year on Instagram, on social media. I was thinking to myself, man, what percentage of my waking life am I spending on social media? I'm going to use it as a megaphone, not as a place to interact that often anymore. Because I just don't think it's time well spent. I got books to write. I got a radio show to do. I got a TV show coming out. I got all these different obligations, plus 3 kids and a wife. I can barely keep up with all of them. And I don't think it's an effective way to spend your time. And so I'm going to use it as a megaphone much more than I'm going to be interacting on a day-to-day basis. I still like the links. I'm scrolling through. But if you're giving me an opinion, I'm almost not going to look at it at all because I just don't have time to do it. I'm going to continue to read the people that I follow, going to continue to use it as a news source. But spending all day there, I just think is a bad way for me to spend time, especially because the book's coming out this fall. I'm going to be insanely busy with the new television show. I got to sleep at some point. So the new television show is going to be out. I just think it's important to recognize Twitter's not real life. Finally, I know I mentioned this a couple of times. I told you the minute he was nominated, Brett Kavanaugh is going to be confirmed. I said it. There's no doubt. I said it. It's going to happen. There's zero doubt at all. What I would encourage you to do, spend more time reading physical objects. I'm finishing my nights every day now by reading about World War II. Because if you read history, you recognize how much of what's going on now is complete and utter nonsense. how much of what is being complained about is a bunch of pussies running around complaining all day long about everything. And I'm not willing to jump into the larger victimization culture that exists in America today, where everybody just argues over who is the most oppressed. My answer is pretty straightforward. The only hand you can rely on, first of all, blood bank guarantee. The only hand you can rely on is the one at the end of your sleeve. If everybody spent a lot more time worrying about being better themselves and a lot less time trying to blame other people, the country would be much better. And that is the truth, right? The fact of the matter is Colin Kaepernick's protest is not about making the world a better place. It's about blaming others for things that he has no control over. Control yourself. Control your own life. I am Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. I encourage all of you to go share, to listen, to watch. All this also goes up on YouTube now. I got my man Jimmy, who I've just hired now to be cutting all these clips. So if you miss a whole show, we'll be sharing smaller segments of it. Go sign up for Outkick VIP. We're going 12-0 with the picks. Lots of optimism, lots of excitement as we roll into week 2. Republicans by Sneakers 2 is coming out September 25th, a couple of weeks from now, and I will be all over the country promoting it. Love you guys. Appreciate you giving me the time and energy every single day. Share the show if you enjoy it. My name is Clay Travis, and this is Outkick the Show. D-BAT boys and girls, but sometimes you got to S-BAT. See y'all.